Welcome to Simply Explained English. I am Lisa.
And I'm Eric. Do you want to improve your English easily? If so, you're in the right place.
Okay, today we'll listen to a podcast about a 15-minute daily speaking study plan.
Let's listen to it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, 15-Minute English Speaking Practice. I'm Mark.
And I'm Emma. Thank you for joining us today. In this podcast, we will share a simple daily routine to help you improve your English speaking skills in just 15 minutes a day.
That's right. We will talk about a warm-up, choosing a topic, speaking practice, and how to check your progress steps. Our goal is to help you feel more confident and fluent in English.
We want to help you nail down a routine that works for you. Let's get started. So, why is daily practice so important? Well, it's all about building a habit. When you practice a little bit every day, it becomes easier and easier. It's like learning to ride a bike. At first, it's hard, but after a while, you don't even have to think about it.
Exactly. And a short 15-minute session can really help you feel less afraid of speaking.
Plus, regular practice helps your brain remember words and phrases better. When you need to speak, you'll be able to recall them more quickly.
I remember when I started learning Spanish, I was so shy about speaking. But I made a promise to myself to speak for at least 10 minutes every day, even if it was just to myself. After a few weeks, I felt much more comfortable talking to native speakers. All right, let's break down our 15-minute routine step by step. First, we have the warm-up. This part takes 2 minutes. Emma, can you explain this part?
Sure, Mark. During the warm-up, we quickly activate our brains for English. You can say a few vocabulary words or simple phrases that you have learned recently. It's like stretching your muscles before exercise. Just speak slowly and clearly. This helps you get ready to speak for the rest of the practice.
Exactly. The idea is to get your mouth moving and your brain thinking in English. Choose a topic you're interested in, like hobbies, travel, or something in the news.
Then, write down 3 or 4 keywords or short phrases related to that topic. For example, if your topic is travel, you might write down beach, passport, adventure, and delicious food.
Try to choose a different topic each day to keep things interesting and cover a wide range of everyday conversations.
Right. Having a few keywords in mind makes it easier to talk. It gives you a small plan to follow. After the preparation, we move to the main part, intensive speaking practice. This part lasts 7 minutes, and it is the most important part of the routine.
Right. Having a few keywords in mind makes it easier to talk. It gives you a small plan to follow. After the preparation, we move to the main part, intensive speaking practice. This part lasts 7 minutes, and it is the most important part of the routine.
For the intensive speaking practice, try to speak continuously about your topic. You can break these 7 minutes into small parts. For example, speak for 1 minute, take a short pause, then speak for another minute. This helps you to keep the conversation flowing and gives you time to think.
That's a good idea, Emma. The goal is to speak as much as you can without stopping. You can also record your practice. Later, listen to the recording to see where you can improve. Recording yourself is a great way to notice mistakes and track your progress.
Yes, and while speaking, try to use simple sentences. Use words you know well, and do not worry about being perfect. The more you practice, the more you will nail down your speaking skills. Over time, you will become more confident and fluent.
Also, it is helpful to use transition words like first, then, and finally, or use other words like however, therefore, or in addition to connect your ideas smoothly. These words make your speech sound more natural. If you get stuck, you can say, "Let me think," and then carry on.
Don't worry about pausing for a moment to think. It's perfectly normal. What's important is that you keep practicing.
Try to use different sentence structures and vocabulary to challenge yourself.
If you're practicing alone, imagine you're talking to someone. This can help you keep the conversation going.
Remember, it's okay to make mistakes. Don't be too hard on yourself. The point is to build momentum and get comfortable speaking. Even if you hesitate sometimes, the practice will add up and you'll see improvement over time.
Finally, we have reflection and feedback. This is where you think about how you did and what you can improve. If you recorded yourself, listen to it and take notes on any mistakes you made, awkward pauses, or pronunciation issues.
You could also keep a journal to track your progress each day. Write down what you did well and what you need to work on. Be kind to yourself. Acknowledge what you did well, and then focus on the areas where you can improve.
Set small goals for your next practice session, like mastering a difficult phrase or using a new expression confidently. Remember, reviewing your performance and thinking about how you can improve is a really important part of learning.
So, that's the 15-minute routine. Each part works together to help you become more fluent and confident in English.
Now that you know the routine, here are a few extra tips to help you get even more out of it. Try to use new vocabulary words in your everyday conversations. The more you use them, the easier they'll become.
Remember, even a little bit of practice every day can make a big difference. Don't get discouraged if you don't see results right away. Just keep going and you'll get there.
As they say, practice makes perfect. Every day you practice, you're getting closer to fluency.
Track your progress and celebrate your small wins. Did you use a new word correctly? Did you speak more fluently than yesterday? These are all things to be proud of. So, to recap, we've talked about the benefits of daily practice and shared a simple 15-minute routine that includes a warm-up, topic preparation, intensive speaking, and reflection. We also gave you some extra tips to help you stay motivated.
We encourage you to try this routine for at least a week and see how much you improve. We think you'll be surprised.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. We hope you found this episode helpful.
If you have any questions or feedback, please let us know, and stay tuned for our next episode.
Keep practicing, and we'll see you next time.
What do you think about the podcast, Eric?
I loved their idea of a short daily routine. It feels doable and motivating.
Right. Then you focus on speaking for 7 minutes straight, even if you make mistakes. Recording yourself helps too.
Yes, plus the reflection part is brilliant. Listening to your recording, noting mistakes, and celebrating small wins.
Definitely true. All right, let's start our podcast. What are the words today, Eric?
The first word today is intensive. Then we will continue with discouraged and to hesitate. Then to acknowledge. And the final one is carry on.
Let's start with the first word.
The first word is intensive.
Intensive.
Intensive is an adjective that describes something requiring a lot of effort, energy, or focus in a short time. It's used when something is done with great force or concentration.
So, if we say an intensive course, does that mean a course where you study a lot in a short time?
Exactly. An intensive English course might involve 5 hours of study per day instead of just 1.
That makes sense. Can intensive be used for other things too?
Absolutely. For example, in sports, athletes do intensive training before a big competition, meaning they train very hard in a short period.
Oh, I see. What about work? Can someone have intensive work?
Yes, but we usually say intensive work periods. For example, we had an intensive 2-day project to finish the report. It means working very hard in a short time.
That's helpful. And I've heard of intensive care in hospitals. What does that mean, Eric?
Great example. Intensive care is a special hospital section for very sick patients who need constant medical attention.
Oh, I see. And Eric, is intensive a formal word or can we use it in everyday conversation?
Intensive is a neutral word, meaning you can use it in both formal and informal situations. For example, in a business setting, you might say, "We had an intensive meeting to finalize the project." In everyday conversation, you could say, "I'm taking an intensive driving course this week."
That's good to know. Okay, well, I think we've explained intensive pretty well. Let's move on to the next word.
The next word is discouraged.
Discouraged.
Discouraged is an adjective that describes the feeling of losing confidence, motivation, or hope. When you feel discouraged, you don't want to continue something because it seems too difficult or impossible.
Oh, I see. So if I study hard for a test but still get a bad grade, I might feel discouraged?
Exactly. You might feel like giving up, but don't worry. Mistakes help us learn.
That's true. Can we use discouraged in different situations?
Yes, you can feel discouraged in many areas of life. For example, if you apply for a job and don't get it, you might feel discouraged about finding work.
Or if someone trains for a marathon but gets injured, they might feel discouraged because they can't run.
Right, Lisa, it's correct.
Is discouraged a formal word? Or can we use it in daily conversation, Eric?
Discouraged is neutral, so you can use it in both formal and informal situations. For example, in a workplace, someone might say, "After several failed attempts, the team felt discouraged." In a casual setting, you could say, "I felt discouraged after losing the game."
But how do we use discouraged in a sentence grammatically?
Great point. Discouraged is often used with the verb feel, as in "I feel discouraged." It is also commonly followed by the preposition about or from when explaining why. For example, she felt discouraged about her progress, or he was discouraged from applying again.
Okay, that's it for the word discouraged. Let's move on to the next word.
The next word is hesitate.
Hesitate.
Hesitate is a verb that means to pause or stop for a moment before doing something, usually because you feel unsure or nervous.
So if I want to answer a question, but I'm not sure if my answer is right, I might hesitate before speaking?
Exactly. You might pause for a second because you're unsure. For example, if someone offers you a job and you're not sure if you want to take it, you might hesitate before accepting.
Or if I'm about to jump into a cold swimming pool, I might hesitate before going in.
Right. It's a natural reaction when we feel uncertain or need time to think.
That's really helpful. Is hesitate a formal word, Eric?
Hesitate is neutral, so you can use it in both formal and informal situations. In a business setting, you might hear, "If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask." In a casual conversation, you might say, "I hesitated before trying sushi for the first time."
Oh, so if I'm nervous about asking for help, I can say, "I hesitate to ask questions sometimes."
Exactly. And in negative sentences, we often use "don't hesitate," like "don't hesitate to call if you need help."
That's so useful. So, to summarize, hesitate means to pause because you feel unsure or nervous.
Exactly, Lisa.
Okay, well, shall we move on to the next word?
Let's do that. The next word is acknowledge.
Acknowledge.
Acknowledge means to accept, recognize, or admit that something is true or exists.
Oh, I see. So if I make a mistake and say, "I acknowledge that I was wrong," it means I admit my mistake?
Exactly. When you acknowledge something, you accept it as a fact. For example, Emma acknowledged her friend's help by saying thank you. This means Emma recognized that her friend helped her and showed appreciation. And sometimes people acknowledge difficult truths. For example, she acknowledged that learning a new language takes time.
That's really helpful. Is acknowledge a formal word, Eric?
Acknowledge is more common in formal or professional situations. In casual speech, we might say admit instead, like, I admit I was wrong. But in business or official settings, we use acknowledge. For example, the company acknowledged the customer's complaint.
Got it. And how do we use acknowledge in a sentence grammatically?
Acknowledge is a verb, so it's often followed by a noun, a that clause, or a gerund that means ing. For example, I acknowledge your effort. He acknowledged that he was late. Or she acknowledged making a mistake. Or she acknowledged having been at fault.
So if someone thanks me, I can say, I acknowledge your kindness.
Exactly. Let me give one more example. Jack nodded to acknowledge his teacher's question. This means Jack showed that he understood by nodding his head.
Okay, well, I think now our listeners understand the word acknowledge better. Now, let's move on to our last word.
The last word is carry on.
Carry on.
Carry on is a phrasal verb that means to continue doing something, especially after an interruption or difficulty.
I see. So if I'm talking to a friend and someone interrupts us, I might say, let's carry on our conversation.
Exactly. You're telling your friend to continue talking. Or if you face difficulties in life, you might hear advice like, stay strong and carry on.
Oh, so it can also mean to keep going despite challenges.
Right. Another common use is when flight attendants tell passengers, please carry on with boarding. It means continue boarding.
That's really useful. Is carry on a formal phrase or is it more casual, Eric?
Carry on is neutral, so you can use it in both formal and informal situations. In everyday conversation, you might say, I'll carry on with my work. In a business setting, you might hear, despite the difficulties, the company will carry on with its plans.
Got it. And how do we use carry on in a sentence grammatically?
Great point. Carry on is often followed by a noun or a gerund, ing form. For example, he carried on his studies, or she carried on working despite the challenges.
So if I want to say that I continued learning, I could say, I carried on studying English.
Exactly. And in negative form, we say, don't carry on like that, which means don't continue behaving that way.
Okay, well, that's it for today's episode of Simply Explained English. We hope you found the words helpful and the explanations easy to understand.
Thanks for listening. Keep studying your English.
And stay tuned. Bye for now.